Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 26, 2017 meeting of the Titusville City Council at 6:30. We have a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. The first matter of business is the invocation, and we have Pastor Dory Valley of Hope Community Fellowship Church to be with us. Good evening, ma'am.
If you'll join me in prayer. Father, we want to begin tonight by thanking you for keeping us and watching over us even during the recent visit of Irma. That, Lord, it could have been much worse, but your hand was in this. Secondly, I want to thank you for the city of Titusville, that this is a place where you have drawn us to live. It's a city where your presence resides. It's a city, Lord, of success and prosperity, and we just declare that over our city. And finally, Father, I thank you for these men and women on the council who have given of their hearts and their lives to serve this city. Lord, I ask your blessing upon them. I ask that you continue to inspire them, give them wisdom, knowledge, understanding, that the decisions that they make will truly be to serve this city. And for that, we give you thanks. Now we invite you to be part of this meeting and to direct the conversation for the glory of your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First matter of business is the approval of minutes. We have the minutes from the regular City Council meeting on August 8th, 2017, and special City Council meetings on August 24th, September 14th, and September 19th of 2017. I'll accept a motion to approve those.
I'd move to approve those minutes.
I have a motion to approve. Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. The next item is special recognitions and presentations. I don't think we have any. We completed the last meeting. Boards and commissions. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, sir. The first one is to accept the Board of Adjustments and Appeals semi-annual report as written.
Okay. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Make a motion to accept that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Mr. City Manager, the next one? Or?
Yes, sir. Item 6B, accept the Municipal Code Enforcement Board semi-annual report as written.
Can I have a motion to that effect?
Mayor, you can have a motion. I do have a question.
Okay.
Was that on this one? Double check. I did. I had a question for the city manager, and I think we discussed it, and I'm not sure if he was able to get an answer or not about the procedure in other areas for when people don't have water. Do you remember?
I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't know what your question is.
We have, like, the 415 Rock Pit Road. It says occupied with no active water. The 1824 Smith Drive, occupied with no active water source. 2800 Starlight Drive, occupied with no active water source. And I apologize because I should have brought it up earlier. But my question was, are these incidents where the owner is dying and leaving a child or a young lady in the house without water, and how are other cities handling it, or how are we handling it? And I don't know. No? Okay.
Yeah, you have to have water to a house if it's occupied.
Okay.
And that's why the code enforcement issue is there, that it's occupied without water.
Okay. I think my question was, in other areas, other cities, how are they handling it when a child comes in and says, Mom or Dad died, I'm living in the house, I'm 19, what do I need to do?
The property needs to be.
What you're talking about probably is a little bit of a different situation. Right.
Okay.
Right, because
Yeah.
these situations typically is maybe you have a squatter who's in a house without water and sanitary reasons. They go to code board to make sure they get water turned on at that house and they're not
Okay.
living in a home with no water. But you're talking about situations maybe where someone's passed away and a family member comes in and wants to open an account and get service.
Correct.
Because typically to do that, you would need, if you're an owner, you would have a deed that shows ownership to open an account. So we make sure someone who's not authorized to open a water account is not opening a water account when you're out of town, something of that nature. Or a tenant would have a valid lease. But there may be situations in the interim where it is an estate or someone's passed away and they don't have a deed.
Correct.
And we do work with those individuals. I can just say it's case-by-case basis. Can't tell you if there's policies in other cities, because I haven't looked at that, but we'd be glad to look at that if you'd like me to report that back to you.
If you wouldn't mind, I'm really curious about what other cities do to make sure that these people have water. I know some of these people probably don't understand probate.
I would bet if there's an estate, there's some individuals who would, of
Yeah.
course, have to have an attorney to go through the probate process. And we'll make every effort to work with individuals and point them in that direction
Yeah.
to work with them. Because, we have a goal of everybody having water who's in a home, and it's to our benefit to do
Yeah.
that, so yes.
Mr. Broom, if you don't mind, I'm really curious about what other cities are doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
You were making a motion?
I would move to approve the municipal code semi-annual municipal code board semi-annual report.
Okay, thank you. I need a second on that, please.
Second.
Any discussion? I hear none. All those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously.
Item 6C, Board of Trustees of the General Employee Pension Plan appointment. Appoint one member to the Board of Trustees General Employee Pension Plan for a 3-year term to expire on 30 September 2020. Ms. Suzanne Noel Copeland has submitted her application for consideration. There are no other applications on file.
Do I have a motion?
I would move to appoint Suzanne Copeland to the Board of Trustees of the General Employees Pension Plan.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
I would like like to make a comment. This is an extremely important board. Is Mr. Cookman here this evening, by any chance? I would have felt better at this point, rather than nominating someone to this board without having ever talked to her or seen her, that possibly we could delay this, Mr. City Manager, or table this for the next meeting and have her here.
Certainly, sir, if that's council's desire, we will invite Ms. Copeland.
Right. I'd like to hear from council an addendum to the motion to do just that, to wait till the table till the next meeting and have the lady here so we could talk to her.
So you need a motion to table it until the next meeting?
Well, you're the maker of the motion. You could revise your motion if you want, I guess, and as long as he accepts that, that would be all right.
Okay, we can do that. It would be good to hear from her. I didn't see that she was an employee relations specialist, which is sort of what made me feel comfortable, but it would be good to have her here. So I would move to table it if Mr. Behringer would agree.
Can I speak?
Well, we need a second for that motion for you to speak, okay? Procedurally.
Sorry, I didn't make it a second.
I know, but she made the motion, so in order to have a discussion, we have to have a second, or she has to withdraw.
I didn't second, sir.
Oh, you did?
First time. Just changed it.
He did. Make the motion, and we can take it off if it isn't accepted, so.
Second for discussion.
And well, do you want to let him discuss?
Sure, absolutely, sir. I had no problem with the applicant, and that's maybe the first time I've heard that, we want to bring somebody in to talk to them. I like that. We had one a while ago where we were getting ready to make a change. This is a little different. I agree it would be good to talk to that person, but really what I wanted to get out there was I think that just in my short time on the council, I've seen that we would really do well to get out the word that we need some applicants for some boards. Again, here was another one where we have one applicant. So it just seems to me that, I don't know, and city manager might be able to comment, it just doesn't seem like we have the 3 or 4 people in there and that we get to go through the resumes and the applications and see what we think. So that was really the main comment I wanted to make here. I'm fine either way we go with that.
Understood, and it's a very good comment. We do have difficulty getting more people, and we have people that have been on these boards for years, and they're doing a good job, and we don't necessarily want them to move. But and the reason I did it with this particular one, because this is concerning the pension board and tax money into the future years, and we have had questionable decisions made in the past, so I want to make sure whoever comes along has some experience or the ability to deal with it. But I understand what you're saying. Mr. City Manager, would you like to comment on our how we advertise for the boards?
I'll have the clerk if you wish, sir.
We currently advertise the vacancies on the city's website, the bulletin boards, the channel, government channel television. In addition, every so often we do run ads in the paper, which we find we really don't get a lot of applicants from doing that. I think word of mouth is the best way. I know I don't know if council has some people in mind that they could, try to get the word out to, and the different meetings that you attend might be able to let them know we're looking for board members.
And we have had challenges getting quorums on certain boards, which delays our processes.
We certainly would invite anybody listening as boards come open, or if they look on our website as things are opening up, if they would like to come in and put an application in, that would be great. Certainly, we love the people that are on there, have been doing this for many years, but sooner or later they retire and boards come open because people move or a number of reasons. So certainly, if you have any interest at all, you can put an application in and just say on the application to call me on the next opening, whatever the board happens to be, if you think you qualify for it. With that, any further discussion? I hear none, so I will call the vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Mr. City Manager.
The terms of regular member Ellen Johnson, Bruce Morgan, and William Schaefer are scheduled to expire 30 September 2017. Mr. Morgan and Mr. Schaefer has expressed their willingness and desire to continue to serve on this board and have requested a reappointment for 2-year terms, which will expire 30 September 2019. Their applications are attached in your agenda. Member Elaine Johnson advised that she does not wish to be considered for reappointment as a board member at this time. There are no other applications on file for this position, and the position is for the North Brevard Library District Board.
Okay, Council, what's your pleasure? We need a motion from somebody. I can't do it.
Okay, I'll make that motion. We would move to reappoint Bruce Morgan and William Schaefer to the North Brevard Library District Board.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Next item.
Community Redevelopment Agency appointment. The term of member-at-large, Christy Anderson, is scheduled to expire on 30 September 2017. She has expressed her willingness and desire to continue to serve on this board and has requested a reappointment for a 4-year term to expire on 30 September 2021. Her application is part of the agenda packet. There are currently no other applicants on file for your consideration.
Okay. What's your pleasure?
I would move to reappoint Christy Anderson to the CRA board.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes. Yes. Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Before we do petitions and requests, I don't think I asked the clerk to read the procedures for public comment. Would you do that, please? Yes, ma'am.
Individuals wishing to speak on public and non-public hearing agenda items must complete a sign-up card and present it to the clerk prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions, but not both. No sign-up card is required. Sign-up and oath cards are located on the table in the back of the council chamber. Citizens shall not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address the pending issues, and citizens are given 3 minutes to speak on all items.
Thank you, Clerk. This next item is petitions and requests, which does not require a card. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? If you'll come forward, sir. State your name, please.
My name is Carl Krupp. I've got property at 612 Garden Street, and I've been having issues with the city maintenance. The east side of my property is a city-owned right-of-way. It is 15 foot. The grass is over 8 feet high. I have been dealing with the downstairs, the customer relations, with maintenance, and for my first contact with the city maintenance is that the homeowner has to take care of a city right-of-way, which is incorrect. That's city-owned property. If it's an easement, it's mine to take care of, but the city can say what I can do. I had to explain that to Jan down at maintenance, and dealing with the customer relations gentleman. Finally, they said, "Oh, we'll send someone out and take a look and see what needs to be done." I've been doing this for over 2 months, dealing with them, and now I'm seeing snakes, rats. They're burrowing into one of my sheds that back up to this area. It's a safety and health issue now. Is there anybody on this board that can help me to get them to take care of their property the way they, for the city?
Yes, sir. I'll do it right now. Mr. City Manager, did you look into, or are you familiar with this situation?
Not familiar, no, but Mr. Cook may be.
What it is an unimproved right-of-way, so it has no public infrastructure in it. It's an old right-of-way. It used to be an alleyway, as far as we can tell. We have not, in the past, maintained vacant properties. So unimproved right-of-ways in the city have not gotten on our maintenance schedule because we don't cut them. So
There are power poles up and down through this right-of-way.
which power poles would be FPL's easement on top of.
But with the tree limbs and everything else, if they come down, FP&L can't get back to there. FPL doesn't cut the grass. The city, the counties do that.
Any recommendation at this point?
Sir, as Mr. Cook said, we don't do that.
I guess that lady downstairs was right, sir. I wish I could help you, but it's...
Then why are we having to pay taxes for city maintenance?
For the
If
things
don't
they
take
do
care
do.
of- I can't go and cut down a tree in the city right away without getting in trouble. I legally cannot maintain someone else's yard.
I can only tell you that we... Yes, sir.
I mean, the other suggestion would be that it is not an improved right-of-way. It can be vacated, which would split it to the two property owners, and we can assign an easement to the other utilities, which would make it your property as opposed to the city's.
Correct.
If it has no
And-
benefit to the city, then that would be a normal property owner request to vacate a right-of-way.
Is that acceptable to you?
No, it's not, because the power poles are within a foot of my fence line. It's a property I have no value, nothing to
Well,
be
you
able to
could
do
cut
with
it, though, and get it the way you want it.
It's not my property. I shouldn't have to
We're
maintain
we're
something for
offering you
someone
the
else.
property. You don't want to do that, though?
No.
Well, then you'll leave us no choice, sir.
leave me no choice. Thank you.
So the other property, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. So the other property owner, if they wanted that piece of property, if they wanted to take over that, that would be appropriate.
Yes, ma'am. When a right-of-way is vacated, it splits down the middle, so the abutting properties accept half of it. You see a number of right-of-way easement vacations come through. You occasionally see a right-of-way vacation. The easement's already the person's property, so there's no splitting, but in a right-of-way, it actually will split down the middle and go to the abutting property owners. And then, end that process, there can be assigned additional easements on top of it for FPL, city water, or anything.
But they have to accept it, though.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever vacated without the property owner's request. I don't think we've done a proactive vacation of a right-of-way.
I'm thinking, one property owner says, I don't want it, and the other property owner says, yes, I do want it. Could it go to the other
Well,
property
any
owner?
petition would have to come to you. So,
Yeah.
Well, can you check if the other side would like to take that property, just to see we don't leave anything open?
Yeah. And just to kind of share why we don't maintain right-of-ways aren't improved, think about Sun Valley, who has tons of platted roadways that have never been improved. So if we were to start maintaining right-of-ways that had nothing ever built into it, we would be absorbing another, doubling our maintenance infrastructure at that point for mowing down basically roads in the woods.
And if we did this, it would set a precedent? Is that what you're
That's my concern. We'd have others request the same.
saying? Go ahead.
Yeah, so, and I guess the only concern that I have specific to this is that if the location of the road we're talking about, is this on Garden?
Yes, sir. Right where they're going to be.
Would you come back up to the microphone, please?
And I'm just saying from a public interest standpoint, and I understand that it's not policy, so that I totally get that. That would be my only concern. I think one is that, number one, when we talk about beautification of the community, I would totally agree that in undeveloped areas or the areas that that there are specific parts in our city that aren't smack dab on the middle of one of our thoroughfares, and I could argue probably from a beautification standpoint, in the same way that I would hope that we would maintain portions of property on US 1 that might be ours, in the same manner that I think that it would be a beautification. Now, whether we do or don't, that's a different story, but I guess I could see an argument, especially because I think that the zoning over there, specific to on Garden Street, has both business and residential, if I'm not mistaken. So you get this mix, and I know that if I had 8 foot something next to my property,
8 foot grass.
or grass, all right, I'm just saying, if I had overgrown whatever it may be, that I would get concerned about some critters being in there and stuff like that in a place that could be residential. And for someone who, if it's that small of an area or a potential area, I could see where that could be some conflict. So I guess I get the hardship. I think it's unique to the property. I think it's unique to the location. So.
And it is the area of Garden Street where they're going to be doing the DOT resurfacing and putting the bike lanes and everything else in.
I would only comment, when we start doing things that we don't ordinarily do, it's always a slippery slope. And I would advise that you not take action on this tonight, because I don't see any action, but speak to city staff and see if they have any suggestions.
I mean, I'd be happy to follow up internally, and then also, I don't want to I also want to make sure that I'm not. You talk about proactively checking if somebody in the neighborhood wants a hunk of property. I don't know what conflicts there may be as a council member doing that, but
yeah, if there's a petition to vacate a right-of-way, you'll address that.
right.
When it comes to mowing right-of-ways next to residential, and these are more operational decisions for your
Yeah.
city manager and staff, and we'd be glad to look at that, look at particular properties, and see how we want to handle that.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry.
It's not something that I'm asking them to do on the regular cycle. I mean, if they come out every 2 or 3 months just to keep it knocked down.
I'll be glad to
And
look at that.
they're riding the lawn tractors right past it as they do Garden Street. It would take them less than 5 minutes to do this area.
Sir, my point is that if it's done once, then we have to do it for everybody. We can't just do it for one individual that requests it. So it's more than just one problem that we're looking at. Maybe something can be done. We'll find out. But at this point, it's just, it always starts out with one, and all of a sudden there's 100 people asking us to take care of their properties.
No, it's not my property. That's the thing.
But you don't want it to be your property. That's
No,
your
I
choice.
don't. Because there would be no advantage to it.
Sir, I've heard what you said. I thank you very much, and we'll take a look at it.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else from petitions and requests? Not seeing any. We'll go to consent agenda. Clerk, are there any cards on the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Council, do you have any items you'd like to pull from the consent agenda?
I had one, sir.
What item is that?
Make sure I get it right. I thought it was Q.
What was it?
8Q.
8Q. Anyone else? Seeing none. I will pull item 8Q. I need a motion for all the rest of them.
And sir, you do have 3 resolutions, item L, M, and N.
Right?
Be Resolution 16, 2017, 17, 2017, 18, 2017, which will require a roll call vote.
Yes, sir, but we can do the roll call all together, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you're just stating that. I get it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion for approval of items A through... Sorry? T? A through T excluding Q. I think it's T. S-T, yes. Have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Mr. City Manager, read the consent agenda.
If y'all would like to take a coffee break, I'll be here for a while.
I get that.
And just to remind council, this is, since we had to cancel the city council meeting due to the hurricane, this is 2 meetings worth of consent agenda items. So I'll begin with consent agenda item 8A. Approve the award of the contract to the engineering firm of Wright Pierce Incorporated of Orlando, Florida, in the amount of $593,005 to provide professional engineering consulting services for the design and construction of the Morning Dove Water Treatment Plant Solids Train Upgrade Project, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Consent agenda item 8B, authorize the issuance of water supply capacity allocation permit in the amount of 20,095 gallons per day for the Indian River Behavioral Health Project. This project has been received approval by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for utility infrastructure installation. Consent agenda item 8C, approve the attached budget amendment to provide necessary funds for permanent paving repairs and award to P&S Paving Incorporated of Daytona Beach, Florida, to perform permanent repavement repairs at 905 Cheney Highway in the amount of $16,177.56. Consent agenda item 8D, approve the award of the contract to EA Tapping Services, LLC of Apopka, Florida, in the amount of $18,600 for the purchase of 3 6-inch valve insertions for Water Resources Field Operations Division in 3 separate locations, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Consent agenda item 8E, approve the use of Daniela Construction Corporation, Florida, for emergency relocation and repairs of city system utilities associated with the Florida East Coast Central Rail Trail construction project, an estimated expenditure of $76,000. In addition, approved Daniela as the vendor of record to provide said emergency services during the construction of the project, and authorize the city manager to execute all the instruments necessary for this engagement. Consent agenda item 8F, approve the award of work order BFA WR 009 to Barnes, Farland, and Associates Incorporated in the amount of $165,687.81 to provide engineering consulting services, including but not limited to determining the maximum safe yield of Area 3 well field, identifying wells to relocate, replace, permitting test wells, bidding and construction management, preparation of preliminary design reports, and authorize the mayor to execute the work order. Consent agenda item 8G, approve the award of medical reinsurance coverage subject to approval of FY 2018 budget with Cigna to cover medical reassurance cost at an estimated annual premium of $560,921 for FY 17 and 18. The amount represents a flat fixed cost estimate at less than 1% increase in specified reinsurance cost over the current year spending. Additionally, authorize the city manager to put in place any instrument necessary for this engagement. Consent agenda item 8H, approve the award of contract bid number 17B31 bid number 1 to Affordable Development of Titusville, Florida for sanitary sewer main line point repairs in the amount of $51,479.47, and award a separate contract for bid number 5 to All Terrain Tractor Services of Orange City, Florida for sanitary sewer manhole replacements in the amount of $43,900, and authorize the city manager to execute the contracts. Consent agenda item 8I, approve the renewal of all lines of insurance coverage for FY 2018 at an estimated total premium of $746,932, which is a slight increase from last year's cost of $738,183, and change a third-party administrative agreement and authorize the city manager to put in all instruments for this contract. Renewal. Consent agenda item 8J, acceptance of easement from Cumberland Farms Incorporated for newly completed Cumberland Farms on South Washington Avenue. Consent agenda item 8K, approve the award of contract to Environmental Services Incorporated of Jacksonville, Florida in the amount of $50,000 for citywide survey of historic resources, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Environmental Services Incorporated. Consent agenda item 8L, approve the nomination of Norwood House located at 17 Tropic Street to the city's Register of Historic Places by adopting resolution number 16/2017. Consent agenda item 8M, approve the nomination of Hill Hotel Apartments located at 422 Julia Street to the city's Register of Historic Places by adopting resolution 17/2017. Consent agenda item 8N, approve the nomination of Hill Grocery located at 428 Julia Street to the city's Registry of Historic Places by adopting resolution 18/2017. Consent agenda item 8O, approve the fiscal year 2017 budget carry forward list. Consent agenda item 8P, approve the use of vendors of record, VOR, for commodities shown on the attached list subject to appropriation of funds for the FY 2018 for such operational requirements and programs. Approve any change to the VOR list resulting from competitive procurement actions conducted by other government agencies for those expired contracts being used by the city under the piggyback and/or cooperation purchasing agreements. Approve the issuance of purchase orders and contract renewal options to the VOR. Delegate the authority to the city manager and to the awards exceeding the ordinance limits to the VOR subject to the appropriation of funds in 2018 for such operational requirements and programs, and authorize the mayor to execute all contracts to the VOR exceeding $50,000, and authorize the city manager to execute all contracts with the VOR up to $50,000. Consent agenda item 8R, approve the award of group life insurance accidental death and dismemberment insurance to OCHS Incorporated, a securing company underwritten by Minnesota Life Insurance Company at a rate reduction to current rates guaranteed for 4 years, effective 1 October 2017 to 30 September 2021, and no benefit change to the current plan design, and authorize the city manager to put in place the necessary instruments to implement this award. Consent agenda item 8S, approve the budget amendment to provide additional funds for project GC 1702 and increase the project total budget to $46,686, and the purchase of a shelter for the fire training tower from RFP Services of Lake Mary, Florida, in the amount of $46,686 in accordance with Clay County Contract RFP number 1314-8, various equipment and amenities for parks and playgrounds. Additionally, authorize the city manager to put in place necessary instruments for this procurement. Consent agenda item 8T, approve the budget amendment in the amount of $167,700 and project creation for various roof repairs, replacements, and award of various roof-related work to Tech Systems Incorporated of Melbourne, Florida, in the amount of $16,515 in accordance with Brevard County Roofing Contract Services P2 14-13.
Very good, Mr. City Manager. Well done. I think that's the longest I've ever been here, ever since I've been here, rather, that had it. But, all right, since, as the city manager already mentioned, we have 3 resolutions in this consent agenda, number 16, 17, and 18, 2017. We will do this by roll call. City Clerk, please call the roll call.
Member Diesel?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Behringer?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
We now have item Q that you pulled, I believe.
Yes, sir. And thank you. And City Manager, I was just hoping you might be able to help us out with just a brief overview and idea. It is a good day from Cigna. I think it's a good day for Cigna. That's about $500,000 on the reinsurance and another $250,000. So that's about $750,000. So my hope is just because it's such a large sum of money, can you help explain what we're doing in AQ?
Yes, sir. We did reassurance, vendor of record for our reassurance, which came in at 1% over, and we were able to shift our administrative services to Cigna as well. So I think for efficiency, it'll be better for the overall operation. We were very uncertain of where this amount would come in based on the high level of claims that we've had over the last 3 years. So we're very pleased with this award, and Cigna is reputable. We're very pleased that this award has happened.
And sir, and I appreciate that, sir. And might you be able to share from a public perspective when we talk about reinsurance does, just relative to the increased healthcare costs and some of the things that we're having to look at as a city, what reinsurance does for the city?
Come on up, Tom.
Thank you.
Let's explain reassurance, or Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, council members, Joe De Niro, Human Resources Director. I thought the item that was asked was about the ASO agreement.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the ASO agreement specifically allows our members to access the Cigna network. Cigna network in terms of the medical providers, the prescriptions, also so the members can enjoy the discounts for that network. It also Cigna provides through the ASO agreement pays our claims. So that's the cost that's associated with the agreement. And the agreement was no change in the current costs. So we're enjoying that relationship, and they have renewed it at no additional cost.
And I think to the Vice Mayor's point, what his question was more, we are self-insured.
Yes.
And what does reinsurance do for the city?
Okay, now if you want to talk about the reinsurance, is that, and I'm going to ask Brian Branham to come up and go over the deductibles and all the threshold above those deductibles and how reinsurance applies.
And to be fair, I think and my hope would be that from a citizen's understanding,
yes,
as we talk about reinsurance and spending $750,000 on insurance plans, reinsurance, and access to health care,
correct,
that maybe how does that benefit maybe tie into what it is that we're talking about administratively? What do we see in return? And then
Sure.
for our employees, what does that mean for them
Sure.
as well?
Sure. Well,
just in continuity.
Yeah. And Brian's our broker, and certainly will go into that. This year, about 7 of our claims account for about 40% of our costs. The reinsurance carrier that we had currently reimbursed the city with about $3 million. So that's how the relationship with the reinsurance works. And Brian can expand on that, if you will, please.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Brian Branham from Crown. As Joe is referring to the stop loss, your question for stop loss, there's two products within stop loss. One is referred to specific stop loss, and if you look at the attachment to Q at the bottom there, it showed a $135,000 deductible. So that is a level of self-insurance up to that dollar amount per person on the plan. So we refer to that as specific deductible, and that you are responsible from $1 up to $135,000 per person. So if a claim exceeds that, then reinsurance steps in. Okay? We did some things differently a number of years ago because you've been self-funded, partially we like to refer as partially self-funded because you're not totally self-funded. You're not like a Disney or a Coca-Cola size where they totally self-insure themselves. You partially self-insure because you buy reinsurance to protect you from the catastrophic claims, like which situation we're in now. We have one claim right now is nearly $2.8 million, one claim. So the good news is we have reinsurance to protect us so that we're capped to a certain point. Okay? That is specific reinsurance. We did a few things a little differently. About 6 years ago, we took some premium, and Symetra, the current stop loss provider, and Cigna also agreed moving forward, effective 10/1, to do the same process where we can defer premium dollars into what's referred to as an aggregating specific corridor. So in essence, if our premium is $600,000, we can defer $100,000 of it to set aside in a pool. And once claims exceed the $135,000 specific deductible, we would exhaust the $110,000 first because it was premium that we would have otherwise paid out. So it's an opportunity to save. And a couple years, a number of years ago, we were in position where we were saving some dollars on the premium that we would have remitted. There's a no loss provision in that. There's no chance for you to lose. It's a good thing when you put dollars into pooling. Second part of the reinsurance is what's referred to as aggregate reinsurance. That covers the plan as a whole. So if claims were to exceed $6.3 million, you also have coverage there as well. And what that $6.3 million is all the claims that are underneath the $135,000. That's where your aggregate number comes in. So I'll stop there for any questions.
Any other questions?
And thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's also a lot of impact. So, and I think it's worthwhile. I know in our minds over the next few years that this is on our mind. So
sure, absolutely.
That. Yeah.
And Cigna has, to Joe's, Cigna has been a good partner to the city. I think we've stayed with our service fee that we pay them for them to process and pay our claims hasn't changed in 9 years. So they've been a good partner. So the stop loss is in every year we have to evaluate the claims and look at what our catastrophic claims are because that number moves. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sure.
Next item is item 9, second.
We'll need to vote on Q.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do. I have a motion on number Q, renewal of administrative services with Cigna. Do I have a second? I don't know who's taking turns, but somebody speak. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
Could I make the motion to approve the renewal of Medicaid medical plan administrative services with Cigna for a period of 1 October 2017 through 30 September 2018 in the amount of $264,059.
All right, read the whole thing. Do I have that motion then? Motion, yes. And a second? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign? Hear none, passes unanimously.
I don't think we voted on the other ones yet either.
Yeah, we did.
I think we just motioned and seconded.
No, we had a roll call vote, remember?
For all of them?
No, we did the roll
I thought it was
call.
just on the resolution.
Yeah, we did resolutions, and I'm not sure we did. Did we?
Yes, we're
It's under
good.
the roll call, I guess.
We had a
Or
roll
you did the
call.
motion a second upon reading. We had the reading. Then it was pointed out that it did include 3 resolutions, 16, 17, and 18. And then I believe you called for the roll call vote. Clerk, is that correct?
So everything was done. That's all right, thank you. Ordinances, second reading or public hearing and related actions. Mr. City Attorney, you want to take that first one and read the ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 30, 2017, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances related to caterers and restaurants by amending the limited uses in the light industrial services and warehousing M1, industrial M2, and planned industrial development PID zoning districts, by amending Section 28-167 restaurants and amending Section 37-1 definitions to add caterer and takeout restaurant, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, an effective date, and incorporation into the code.
Based on a request from a citizen, council directed staff to develop an ordinance that would permit caterers and takeout restaurants in industrial areas. Currently, restaurants are permitted as accessory uses to breweries, distilleries, in industrial and restaurants that cater to industrial use are permitted within the planned industrial district PID. The proposed ordinance creates definitions of caterers and takeout restaurants consistent with state licensing definitions. The ordinance also permits caterers to take out restaurants in light industrial services and manufacturing M1 zoning classifications. A summary of the proposed changes is attached, and this is a first reading. Ms. Busaka is available to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for staff, Ms. Busaka? Okay, go right
I have
ahead.
a specific question. You know, my problem is I tend to read all the ordinances,
It's a good thing.
which may be a good thing, may be a bad thing. But in reading it and looking at the definition of caterer, I was like, it would be so much easier, and we really would need takeout, non-seating restaurant if we just said catering. A caterer is an establishment in which food or drink is prepared in a licensed kitchen for consumption in another location. And then you don't really need the definition of takeout non-seating, because you're basically saying you're preparing it here and it's going to be consumed there. So to me, that made more sense. I'm sorry, I read things.
I'm glad you read things. The reason we did this is because there are 3 different state licenses.
Okay.
And the reason that the issue came up in the first place was because we did not specifically call out the different licensing, and we were afraid that we would have that problem in the future where one person would have a specific license and we would not have a place specifically to point our finger and say, this is what you do. But we can make any amendments you'd like.
To me, that's just simple. You prepare the food here and it's being served over here. Whether you take it, we bring it to you, or serving it to you, you're taking it home, you're serving it to your family or to a party. It just made it, to me, it made it very simple.
All we did was to use the licensing language that the state has, so that if someone comes in with a state license, we can pair it up to our code. But we can, as I said, whatever council would like.
Well, I sort of like that. I did have another question.
Can I ask the city attorney if he'd like to comment on this at all.
My only comment would be, I believe staff, I don't believe this to be inconsistent. I think the comment is maybe it's not needed. So I think the definition as proposed is not inconsistent, but it is very detailed. And I don't know if staff has done that for a reason, because they've had some issues of definitions and, as you said, the licenses, and making it very clear in your definition of what a caterer is. Of course, it's up to council. We certainly, this is the first reading, first public hearing. We certainly can take that into consideration.
And I would just add, when this issue first came up, I went to my old college Webster's dictionary, which is, of course, is ancient by now, but that was basically the definition they had for it.
Right, well, right, the definition is it's prepared in one place to be consumed at another place.
Correct.
But then the question is, well, why can't we also serve it here too? And so I think they wanted to clarify this is not to be for consumption at the location. It was just for clarification. And I think it's probably because of experience the staff has had with maybe that issue. But
I was just sort of like, if you do that, you can get rid of your takeout non-seating restaurant, because you're already saying it is not going to be consumed at that location. Because you're saying it's going to be consumed in another location.
Well, we're not going to change it tonight because it's the first reading, but if you'd like to give us options for the next one, okay? We can take a look at it then when we're voting. City Clerk, are there any speakers?
No, sir.
I mean cards on the item? If not, again, it's okay.
Ms. Busaka, when you were drafting this and working with it, did you see any potential cons to these changes if we were to approve them, in your opinion?
Industrial typically has a much lower parking requirement than restaurants.
Okay.
So it is possible that someone would come into and try to get into an industrial area and there would be not sufficient parking. In addition to that, occasionally in these areas where someone will put a large building together and then put up walls in between to make separate offices or buildings, fumes will go from one of those to the next. And we had an instance, a planner described to us about a gentleman who came in and wanted to put birds as retail. And they said, no, we're sorry, this is industrial. And he said, well, then I'm going to wholesale birds. And about 2 months later, he came back and he was furious that the city had allowed him to have a business tax receipt at that site with birds because someone was varnishing something, one building, one stall, over, and it killed the birds. So sometimes that is true because of the construction of industrial, but we hope that the health inspectors would catch that.
Okay.
But the other issues that we had were that it's typically, again, additional traffic concerns because we typically try not to mix heavy construction or heavy trucks with residential, with smaller vehicles if we can help it. And inviting a restaurant into an industrial area could cause that. Now, I understand why people want to do this because sometimes it's closer to the people that you want to serve, and generally the rents are lower. But those are kind of the pros and cons to this.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this? If not, we'll go on to the next item.
No cards.
Yeah, we have that. The next item is item C, Mr. City Manager.
This is a glitch ordinance. I'll go ahead and introduce it, and then the city attorney will read the ordinance. On 25 October 2000.
We're on the development agreement, aren't we?
No, we're on item B.
We're on B, sir.
Okay, all right, sorry.
I'll read.
You just want to go?
I'll go ahead and read.
Okay.
Ordinance number 31, 2017. An ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances and Land Development Regulations, setting forth authority and purpose and intent, amending Chapter 6, Buildings and Building Regulation, specifically amending Section 6.61 relating to site plot plans to accompany permit applications, amending Chapter 27, General Provisions, specifically amending Sections 2713 through 2716 relating to general provisions, amending Chapter 28, Zoning, specifically amending Section 2821 relating to Indian River City neighborhood zoning, deleting Section 2836 related to sale of land or buildings, amending Sections 2854 relating to allowable use table, 2875 relating to multifamily dwellings, 28101C relating to bed and breakfast inns, 28112 relating to convenience stores without gasoline sales, 28128 relating to graphic print and copying services, 28151 relating to outdoor storage, 28167C relating to restaurants, 28236A relating to churches, 28271C4 relating to community gardens, 28342 relating to the accessory use table, 28353A relating to attached screen porches, 28357C relating to detached accessory structures, 28361 relating to outdoor areas of seating, deleting Section 28362 relating to outdoor areas of seating with entertainment, amending Sections 28363B relating to outdoor display of merchandise, and 28364C relating to outdoor storage as an accessory use, amending Chapter 30, Development Standards, specifically amending Section 3335A relating to landscape yards, amending Chapter 32, Signs, specifically amending Sections 3241 relating to handbills, permits, and posting, and deleting 3246 relating to commercial accessory structures and uses, amending Chapter 33, Development Options, specifically amending Section 3345B relating to amending Master Development Plan in the Regional Mixed-Use Zoning District, and 3356 relating to design review criteria in the urban village, amending Chapter 34, Procedures, specifically deleting Section 3489, Final Plat Required, amending Section 34145, Recording, and Section 34201, Recording of Final Plat regarding plat recordation, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, incorporation into the code, and an effective date.
On 25 October 2016, Council adopted Ordinance Number 27, 2016, updating the structure of the city's land development regulations and making these changes effective 24 April 2017. Subsequent to the adoption of the update, staff has identified a number of corrections that have been consolidated into the proposed ordinance. These corrections have been described on the attached overview and in your packet. Ms. Pusaka is available to answer any questions that you may have on the glitch ordinance.
Are there any questions for Ms. Pusaka? I see none. Clerk, are there any cards on these items?
No, sir.
Okay, that's first reading, so we will go now to C.
Yes, sir. Staff requests to table this action until a regular council meeting on 10 October 2017 to accommodate advertising requirements that were taken into account over the Hurricane Irma.
Okay. Any questions about that? If not, I'll ask for a motion to table.
I'd move to table it to October 10th.
I have a motion. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Member Stokel made it. You just made it. All right. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously. Next, item D.
Yes, Mayor, these items are subject to quasi-judicial. If you would like at this time, I can read the rules applicable to quasi-judicial proceedings.
Yes, sir, please.
During the public hearing portion of the meeting, anyone wishing to speak on a quasi-judicial item must first sign a public hearing agenda card and sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located on the table in the back of the council chambers. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first. Those opposed will be heard second. Those who wish to make a public comment on the item will speak third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. Witnesses may be cross-examined by the applicant, counsel, staff representatives, and such other representatives as authorized by the council. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents that you desire for the City Council to consider, they must be submitted into evidence and will be retained by the city. Please submit such exhibits to the City Clerk. City Clerk, have all persons wishing to speak for the City Council sign an oath card?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if there's anyone present who has not signed an oath card that wishes to speak on a quasi-judicial item, please submit a card at this time. City Clerk, have all agenda items been properly advertised?
Yes, sir.
Have any council members visited any of the sites or spoken to any members of the public regarding a quasi-judicial item to be reviewed?
No.
Thank you. This time, if you'd like, I can go ahead and read your ordinance 25 for item D, rezoning number 1, 2017.
Yes, sir.
Ordinance number 25, 2017, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending ordinance number 5, 1993 of the City of Titusville, Florida, by amending the zoning map made a part of said ordinance by reference, by replacing the present multifamily medium-density residential R2 zoning with single-family high-density R1C zoning for a portion of property located at the northwest corner of Garden Street and Interstate 95, having property ID number 21 35 31 00 751, property having a parcel ID number 21 35 31 00 754, and property is located at 3600, 4002, 4008, 4014 Garden Street, and providing for an effective date.
The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this action 4-0. The applicant, Rodney Honeycutt, on behalf of the owners Garden Street Investors LLC, is requesting to rezone approximately 32.83 acre portion of a larger 80.66 acre property located at the northwest corner of Garden Street and I-95. The request is to rezone the property from multifamily medium-density residential R2 zoning district to single-family high-density R1C zoning district with comprehensive future land use designation of medium-density residential. The purpose of this rezoning is to allow the development of a single-family subdivision on this subject property.
Staff, you have a presentation?
I do, thank you.
Yes, sir. Ma'am.
Currently, this property is designated with the multifamily medium-density residential, single-family medium-density, and open space recreation. The applicant is proposing to amend the zoning map on the area currently zoned R2 to the R1C zoning district. The lots within the R1C portion of the request will be 65 feet in width, and lots within the R1B portion will be 75 feet in width. The current zoning was placed in 2007 and would allow a 288-unit apartment complex along with a subdivision of 138 acres. Because the area is within the city's area of critical concern, the single-family subdivision will contain lots with a minimum of 10,000 square feet, approximately 1/4 of an acre. One of the staff findings deals with comprehensive plan consistency, and the staff has determined that this proposal may be found consistent with future land use element objective 1.14, policy 1.14.5 dealing with compatibility, and policy 1.14.9 dealing with essential public services. Public services are available and concurrent with the land use. The majority of the property has a Zone X flood designation, which is an area of minimal flood hazard. However, there are 2 areas within the property designated with a Zone A designation, and that will be reviewed at the time that the subdivision plat is approved. The proposed R1C zoning is similar intensity to the other land use and zoning designations in the area. The proposed zoning would allow a maximum 35% building coverage, maximum building height of 35 feet, and has similar setback requirements to the zoning districts applied to the surrounding properties. Based on the above findings, the staff recommends approval of rezoning 1-2.17, and this is all contained within your staff report, which is on starts on page 423 of the item. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council have any questions of staff? Go ahead.
I see on the south side, the North Area Adult Education Center, which is now the South Lake Elementary, education on low-density residential to the south. And I also guess I see 138 proposed possible homes. I don't guess there's any way possibly to look into a future traffic study. I guess I'm just really trying to see how that would relate to the plans that BPS has for South Lake Elementary School as a magnet school. The demographics, the density of population, the traffic, I guess we may not be able to answer that yet, but I would like to at least throw that out there as a thought.
The city's engineer, who is a PhD in traffic engineering, will review this plan, and if he believes that there is either additional information required or improvements required, then that would be part of his review as part of the subdivision when it's reviewed at that time.
Okay, and again, I thought that question might be a little premature, but I do note that South Lake is right in the middle of all that, and I'd be curious to see how it would be affected.
Planning and zoning, any other questions first off? Planning and zoning commission recommended approval 4-0. Clerk, do we have any cards on this item?
Mr. Honeycutt is here just to answer questions.
Mr. Honeycutt is the applicant. Any questions for Mr. Honeycutt? We have none. All the cards called in. Close the public hearing. Council discussion on this item. I hear none. I'll ask for a motion to approve rezoning number 1-2017.
I would make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Good job. I have a motion and a second. Member Stokely?
Again, that's ordinance number 25, 2007.
Okay. No further discussion? All those in favor say yes. Oh, roll call, sorry. Roll call, clerk.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Behringer?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Diesel?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next item.
Item 10A, the applicant has requested to table this item until the second meeting in October, which is date certain of 24 October.
If I could, what the applicant would like to do is just re-advertise the item, and there will be that way there will be notices sent out to the public, and there will also be cards sent to the individuals. So there is no need to table this to a date certain. Thank you.
So just, would you like a motion just to table without a date certain?
That way you.
Okay. If we could have a
That would be
motion to
great,
table,
thanks.
and then the date will be set by publishing later.
Okay, can I have a motion to that effect?
I would make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously. Next item.
Yes, sir. Next item is a small-scale amendment number 2, 2017, which includes ordinances number 33 and 34, which I'll read at this time.
All right, sir.
Ordinance number 33, 2017, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending ordinance number 60, 1988, which adopted the comprehensive plan of the City of Titusville by changing the land use designation on a parcel located on the south side of Fox Lake Road, approximately half a mile west of the Interstate 95 right-of-way, with an address of 3815 Fox Lake Road, from the Conservation Future Land Use designation to the Residential 1 designation, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 34, 2017, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending ordinance number 5, 1993 of the City of Titusville, Florida, by amending the zoning map made a part of said ordinance by reference, by replacing the present open space and recreation OR zoning to general use GU zoning to a parcel located on the south side of Fox Lake Road, approximately half a mile west of the Interstate 95 right-of-way, with an address of 3815 Fox Lake Road, and providing for an effective date.
The applicant is requesting a small-scale amendment in rezoning in order to allow for the possible construction of a building with assembly-type uses. The total property area is 272-plus acres. The amendment and rezoning pertain to 6-plus acre portion of the overall property located immediately adjacent to Fox Lake Road. The amendment proposes to replace the existing conservation future land use designation with residential 1 future land use and replace the existing open space and recreation OR zoning district with general use GU zoning. And Ms. Busaka is here to answer any questions that council may have.
Any questions for Ms. Busaka? I see none. Do you have any cards on this item, clerk?
No, sir.
This was a first reading, so we go on to the next one, item C.
Item C is signs in urban village zoning, which is ordinance number 35, 2017. An ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances and Land Development Regulations relating to signs in urban village UV and associated developments. Amending Chapter 32 signs, specifically amending Section 32.2 definitions, creating Section 32.46 urban village UV zoning, and renumbering commercial accessory structures and uses to Section 32.47, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, incorporation into the code, and an effective date.
On 13 June 2017, Doug Kaiser with Excel Project Management requested changes be initiated to the land development regulations related to the number and placement of wall signs within your urban village zoning district. Council granted staff advisability to move forward with the requested changes. The proposed amendments will allow for more than one wall sign per unit while maintaining the maximum allowable signs area. Also, the amendment proposes to allow projecting signs under canopy signs and awning signs in addition to the traditional wall signs while maintaining the maximum allowable sign area. Lastly, the proposed amendment includes provisions for internal directional signs which are pedestrian in scale and assist with wayfinding within the site. The Planning and Zoning Commission is scheduled to review this during their next meeting, and Ms. Busaka is available to answer any questions you may have on this first reading.
Ms. Busaka, do you have a presentation or comments, or just for questions?
Just here for questions.
Council, anyone have questions of Ms. Busaka? I see none. Are there any cards on this, clerk?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kaiser, he's here.
Good evening, Mr. Kaiser.
Good evening. Good evening, Council. My name is Doug Kaiser with Excel Project Management. We're the developer on the Titus Landing project. And first, I wanted to thank staff for working with us, and I think we've, have gotten most of the things that we requested. I have a few just dimensional requests, and I know we've discussed these with staff, and their recommendations are in the ordinance, and these are just some things that I would like to see changed.
Oh, okay. Well, you understand this is first reading. We're not voting
Correct.
tonight, right? Okay.
But I just wanted to bring it to your attention as early as possible so that we could have the same discussion with planning staff, and I know you won't take any action on it tonight.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So the first one is in A, which is Section 3246A1C. It's Council Agenda, page 520. And this is the 300 square foot maximum that's proposed by staff. That square footage would put the Hobby Lobby sign and the parish signs in, would become non-conforming signs with the ordinance. So my preference would be either to eliminate the maximum square footage and just let it be the 20% of the main entrance, or make it 600 feet, and both of those signs would comply. The second item is item B that I distributed, and this is related to the projecting signs. And there was a dimension of 8 feet recommended by staff. That was based on the building department's interpretation of the code. And the section that comes from is where projecting signs project into a public right-of-way. That's not applicable to our signs. And actually, the way our design is laid out, we have the projecting signs are designed to go underneath the wall sconces. So that 8-foot clear would limit the size of those signs to make them very small. So we'd like to just have that be in compliance with ADA and the Florida Building Code, which are both at 80 inches. And it could simply, I don't know that the sign ordinance would need to govern the clear height since it's already governed elsewhere. And then the third was on the directional signage, which we've requested. That's item C. And that is just a height. Staff has recommended a 7-foot height because they're pedestrian oriented. We provided a sign that was from an example that was from Healdsburg, California, downtown area, as an example of what we wanted to try to do, something similar to.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. That, I think that a 10-foot height would be more appropriate to accommodate that need. So those are they're just dimensional requests, and I'd like to.
Ms. Pisacca, would you like to comment on that, or would you like to wait till?
As you wish.
No, it's your choice.
Well, I will just tell you what staff's concerns were. The first was that with the very large buildings that we see there at the Avenue, if you think about the size of the Epic Theater, if you just leave it to a percentage of the building, you could have some very large signage. And the staff was concerned about that because several of these buildings are very large. And the 300 square feet is the current sign maximum amount. So we did not change that. The second issue about the height was simply a difference of.
Can we stop on
Sure.
that first one, because I think there'll probably be. I know I have a question. Some of those. Do you know what size sign you want?
Well, I just don't want those two signs to be non-conforming as soon as the ordinance passes.
How do we not make them non-conforming then? You're looking at the city attorney.
I know, because.
Go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say that there may be a way to write into those two signs, but no others. But I don't know how you just have to decide how you feel about that.
They become lawful non-conforming. In other words, they're not in violation, but it would create issues if the signs were destroyed and the ability to put them back up. So they would still be lawful, but lawful non-conforming if this passed. One thing council could consider is any signs that are lawful prior to this code being passed will remain lawful conforming signs. Therefore, they could put them back up in the event they were destroyed. That might resolve that issue. So there are some, if council's interested in going in that direction, we could fashion some language.
Can you work with our staff on what size? Because I think I understand her issue with just leaving it wide open and not knowing what we're approving at that point might be an issue. But if you gave us definite sizes, then we could handle it the way they're talking about it.
Yeah, that was why I did the takeoff and showed, the Hobby Lobby is the combination of both signs is 584 square feet. So
I don't know what that looks like on the size.
Well, there's a photograph there.
What I'm saying is, I still would recommend that you come up with whatever size you think you need there, and then you just heard the discussion there. I think we can facilitate that.
Sure.
Okay. Next item.
Okay, the second item is simply a difference of opinion between Mr. Kaiser and the building official as to what height that sign should be that people walk under. The building official believes that 8 feet is an appropriate height for people so that people do not bump their heads on the signs. That is the building official's interpretation. Mr. Kaiser doesn't agree with that.
So you want how high? 8 feet?
Minimum height. That's
Minimum
what,
height?
Yes, sir.
Can you live with that, or is there some issue?
It doesn't work with the design for the projecting signs that we have, so we wanted it just to have to meet code, which would be the 80 inches. And we should be above the 80 inches, but we just want to follow the ADA and the Florida Building Code.
And as I said, our building official believes that this is consistent with the Florida Building Code, so it's simply a difference of interpretation.
Okay, well, I would suggest that you discuss this before the next meeting, and then you can make your recommendations.
Okay.
Okay.
And finally, when we talked about directional signs of 10 feet tall, what the staff did was we went to Cocoa Village, and we saw the directional signs that are there, and those are 7 feet tall. And we felt that 10 feet is very tall if we are talking about something that is supposed to be walkable, and that the scale was such that we felt that that was more appropriate.
You didn't, obviously.
Right.
It's a good guess on my part. Huh? Again, we're not sign experts. You got to understand that. If you will discuss it with staff and see if there are some compromise or something that they can come up to that you will accept, then we can.
Those are the only 3 issues that were remaining from the review. From our standpoint, they're just really details.
We hear you, and as always, we'd like you to do what you're doing and make it workable. That we do have certain restrictions, and so talk them out amongst yourselves.
All right.
And then, well, and I'll certainly listen to what the conversation is at a later date. I mean,
Okay.
after you talk about it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, for him?
No, first.
Oh, go right ahead.
Ms. Bisaga, one is, are you seeking any advisability or opinion on this, or would you like to have conversations and move forward and come back? Because I mean, I've got comments, but at the end of the day, I don't want to, jump the gun here. So
My opinion is that council should provide as much direction to staff as you can at this meeting, because otherwise you're going to be in the same situation at the next meeting before your vote. And so if you could give some direction to staff and the applicant at this time where you're thinking, it may lead to some productive discussions between now and your next meeting.
So one is that relative to signs that are in place that wouldn't fit this code, that we would amend code or update code that would then retroactively put somebody out of compliance lawfully, I guess. I'm very comfortable with the grandfathering in of, so that I think is an easy fix. I think specific to if the signs get broken or in disrepair, that grandfathering clause should not force them to come into compliance with new signs, i.e., I think that there are some other signs that, as I noticed hurricane damage, that are larger in nature, that are going to need repair. I don't think that one hurricane should force a business owner to spend on a whole thing. So I would be very comfortable with that. Relative to interpretation, number one, if it is clearly defined with a number parameter within the ordinance or code, being that it says 8 and we think 10 is more appropriate, but it says 8, then I'm supportive of staff, but I would be happy to look at an amendment to that with the purpose of, I am of the opinion that as a business developer or business owner, that those signs. Although 10 feet's pretty high for me to look, and I'm a tall guy. As a business owner, I think that they probably have a good idea on what they want their business to look like. As such, I would leave that to the I would err to the side of the developer on that. So, so I get it in Cocoa. I could see it at 8, but if 10 is what works for that property and they got the money, then go 10. I would be comfortable with that. As far as additional and any further projection signs, I think to the mayor's point, I would be interested maybe from a developer standpoint, what are we looking at? Right? Because as a private company, if I want my name 10, 12 feet high and 50 feet across, I don't think that's realistic that that's going to happen. But I know an ease of confidence from a council policy standpoint, knowing that that's not where we're going, I think it would be a little bit helpful understanding what direction we're heading.
Anything else, sir?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Member Nelson?
Hi. Mr. Berenger, my thought was that Epic Theater is not going to be grandfathered in. And so, okay. One of these days I'll remember that. My thought is that Epic Theater is going to come in. They're going to want a sign that is probably the same size as Parish or Hobby Lobby. And if we turn around and say, well, we're going to leave it like it is, and we're going to grandfather in those buildings, then what are we going to do with Epic Theater? And that's a big building. So I can see them wanting a decent-sized sign. So my suggestion is going to be maybe do something like 20% of the area or 600 square feet. I guess it is. Whichever is less or whichever is more. That kind of idea. Because these people are going to want to come in and they're going to want to put their sign up and they're going to want to be just as big as everybody else. And I don't think we can turn around and say, we changed our mind, we're not grandfathering you in. So that's my thought on that. I don't have any particular problem with the 10-foot sign, the directional sign. That's up to them. And I really don't have any problem with going with the 80 inches that's already here for the protruding sign. It says 7.5 feet. That's next to the building. I would assume most people can walk under it. We might find one every now.
Basketball players.
If one of the Orlando Magic comes over, we might have a problem, but I would assume that would work. It's worked all these years, so I would think that the 80 inches would work.
Member Diesel?
Just reiterating pretty much what's been said, I would like to err on the side of the business owner as well. I've never owned a business to put a big sign on it, but if I had a business, it'd be a real big sign. And so with that being said, we don't want to go gaudy. I would like to think that business owners don't want to go gaudy either. I would think that business owners want a good presentation of their theaters and their areas. So obviously, Ms. Busaka, you always do a great job of working what's best for all involved. I would like to say that we're extremely excited about what's coming over there, and if a big sign enhances that even more, I'm excited about that. 10-foot sign, 10-foot height, it's okay with me too. I'm not sure who can read all that high, but I think when I was thinking, listening to the discussion, it does seem like some of the directional signs over at places like SeaWorld are pretty high. And I don't think that it's necessarily intended for you to stand there and look at it. It's intended as you're approaching it. So 10 feet's not a problem, I don't think.
If I could, that's the difference between a perspective of someone who's 5'4" and someone who isn't.
Vertically challenged, that's called. Ms. Busaka, I think you... and all of us up here, I would like to see us cooperate in any way we can, other than if it is restricted by state or a dangerous situation. And So you know how we all feel about this project, and we certainly want to see see the project accommodated where it can be. But if there are some other items that can't be, that we have to take that into account.
Thank you for your input. That's very helpful.
All right, thank you. All right, where were we? Okay,
Johnson.
shoreline protection ordinance.
Mayor Johnson, I just wanted to let you know we had one additional card. It's
Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Honeycutt.
We have another card?
He said he was just here to answer questions as well, but I didn't want to not give him the opportunity.
What's the meaning of life? Can you help me with that one? Just one question. Shoreline protection ordinance.
Ordinance number 36, 2017. An ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the land development regulations by amending Chapter 29, Special Districts and Overlays, Article 2, Titusville Shoreline Area Overlay District, TSA, specifically amending Section 2925, Minimum Building Setback from the mean high water line of the Indian River Lagoon by amending and renaming Chapter 30, Development Standards, Article 2, Environmental Division 4, Riparian Buffer, to be named Shoreline Protection, and specifically amending Section 3061, Intent, Section 3062, Applicability, Section 3063, Buffers, Setbacks, adding Section 3064, Establishing Standards and Minimum Criteria relating to alterations in the shoreline protection setbacks and surface water protection permits, adding Section 3065, Establishing Setbacks for on-site sewage, treatment, and disposal system, adding Section 3066, Establishing Nonconforming Impervious Area Standards to allow existing structures and impervious areas in the shoreline protection setback, adding Section 3067, Establishing Class 2 and Class 3 waters and surface water protection plan to regulate lot depth of principal structures within the shoreline protection setback, to require mangrove alteration in compliance with federal and state regulations, requiring a surface water protection plan, prohibiting dredging and filling connected to certain waters, prohibiting discharges that degrade existing water quality, adding Section 3068, establishing exemption standards, adding Section 3069 by adding vested rights criteria for computing the density of submerged lands, amending Division 5 bulkhead, dredge, and fill permits, specifically amending Section 3071 minimum building setback from the mean high water level of the Indian River, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, incorporation into the code, and an effective date.
During the Land Development Code reformatting, the City Council directed staff to replace the Area Impact Plan AIP requirement, which previously applied to all new construction or the expansion of existing uses within the shoreline mixed-use zoning district. The proposed ordinance to replace the AIP includes regulations to protect the shoreline, water quality, biodiversity of the Indian River Lagoon. The Planning and Zoning Commission is scheduled to review this ordinance during their 4 October 2017 meeting, and the Titusville Environmental Commission is scheduled to review this ordinance during a special meeting scheduled for 5 October 2017. And Ms. Bisacca is available to answer questions that you may have associated with this ordinance.
Ms. Bisacca, you have a presentation? Just
No,
questions?
sir, just here to answer questions.
Do I have anybody that has a question on this? I don't see any. This is a first reading. So I think that's all we have to do, unless there's any further discussion. All right. Old business, there is none. New business, Forest Trace final plat.
Forest Trace is a residential subdivision consisting of 133 single-family homes on a 41.72 acres. The development is located east of Sisson Road and south of San Mateo Boulevard. On 27 September 2016, City Council approved the sketch plat. Subsequently, the engineering and preliminary plot was approved administratively, and the permit for construction of the infrastructure was issued on 28 March 2017. Pursuant to the Land Development Regulation Section 34173, the required exhibits have been provided, and the plat and declarations of covenants have been reviewed by staff. Staff recommends to approve the final plat and declaration of covenants for Forest Trace.
Okay. Ms. Bisacca?
I just want to confirm that this plat does meet all of the requirements of the Land Development Code.
All right. Council, any questions for staff? I see none. Do we have a public hearing on this, City Attorney?
Ask if there are any cards.
Okay. Are there any cards on this?
Mr. Honeycutt is here to answer questions.
Did you think about my question? Okay, never mind. Okay. Yeah. No any questions for Mr. Honeycutt? I see none. The cards. We'll close the public hearing. Any council discussion on this item? What's your pleasure?
Move to approve the final plat and declaration of covenants for Forest Trace.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. And petitions and requests from the public present. You got me nervous there for a minute. Mayor and council reports. You have my report. One quick discussion after the last meeting, and I'm going to go through this with the CRA as well. By Robert's Rules of Order, everybody is supposed to wait for whoever wants to speak once, council members, before they speak. And there is a limitation of 2 bites at the apple, as we used to call it. Now, that is not strict, but I'd have to say at our last meeting, one of the items got away where people were speaking 4, 5, 6 times. And so please, and most of you do, if not all of you do, I'm not commenting on that in this thing, but on the CRA, there are some issues there, certainly, but you know, try and be as concise as you can. Think about what you're going to say, and please, you know, don't repeat the same items over and over again. That's just wasting everybody's time. So, and I have to say that most of the time we're pretty good at that, but it did get away from us, and so I will be a little bit more cautious about that being those rules not being adhered to. With that, any of the council that has reports? Oh, 6. Yes, sir. You're
Okay, there we go. Trying to be in order here.
You're in order.
There we go. I meant to say it last meeting, but it was only a 7-minute meeting or so, so we moved on. I just wanted to thank, I served in the Imperial States Elementary Hurricane Shelter, and I wanted to thank a couple people. One of them is city manager, who came out and checked on us, and I was very impressed with that, as were the people who were there. Chief Lau came out. We had a constant rotation of police officers in our little village there. I thank all the police officers, including Officer Morgan. And we even had an issue where we had to have the EMTs come out, and they were outstanding to us as well. So it certainly is a little village when you're in a shelter like that. There's a lot of stress and anxiety. We had a lot of elderly there. And it just means a lot to the workers and those involved when you see the city manager and the chief of police. And again, the police officers couldn't have been better. On a different note, I've talked to city manager, and I guess I would just like kind of maybe a report update, tell me how I handle this, on some of the flooding that we had in our city, and maybe get a better understanding for the council of where those areas were. Not that you guys aren't on top of that, because I know you are. But one area in particular off of Park Avenue, down Greenwood, and the Carroll Avenue area, I feel like, and in all candidness, my mother-in-law lives in that area, and that's probably the only reason I go back in that area, because it's about 3 blocks to get back there. And during the hurricane, it was about 3 foot of water on the roads into the yards, and I get that was a hurricane of the century when it came to rain, and I get that. But they seem to have a lot of problems back there getting rid of the water after just a regular rainstorm. So if nothing else, I'd just kind of like to get a little report from those who would be in the know.
Sure, sir. I can address that now. That area referred to as the Baker subdivision is in the 100-year floodplain. So this was a 100-year storm, and it reacted just as projected. We had 7 pumps going to try to alleviate the water. What happened was the flood stage of the river itself, both the Indian River Lagoon and the St. Johns River, allowed us not to make much progress with that until those water levels went down. St. Johns River peaked Friday of last week at 17 feet. If you go out on 46 now, it's right up to the road. It's the highest it's ever been. The storm itself, when Irma came up the Indian River Lagoon, it pushed the river into the stormwater system. So that exacerbated the problem. In addition to the 17 inches of rain we received in a 24-hour period, followed 2 days later by another 2.5 inches of rain. So that's my report. We have done everything possible that we could do during the event. There was a lift station in that area that we couldn't get to because of flooding. We wound up putting a generator on the back of a dump truck and moving the dump truck to the lift station to alleviate that situation. My kudos goes out to the work crews that designed that. I give them credit like I would give an Army soldier that innovated and took the necessary risks to try to take care of that situation.
And I think we have discussed, I'm very impressed with how the city reacted to that. And as I noted when I started, I get that it's a 100-year storm. I guess what I'm getting at from 40 years of going over there, it just seems like there's a slow drainage with an afternoon thunderstorm. I mean, if there's water in the streets over in Imperial Estates where I live, it's gone overnight. Over there, it seems to last several days. I'm just curious if maybe there's some dredging or something that could be done, because I don't know. I mean, be very honest about that. I don't know, but I just know the water stands there longer than other places.
Yes, sir. It's backed up against a lake, as you know, and it's also surrounded by a wetland. So those two factors are a little bit different than Imperial Estates.
Absolutely. We don't have a river over there. We have an elementary school, though. All right. We'll go further. We'll look further into that, and I'll discuss that with you. Like I said, I get that. Is it South Lake that's over there? It's a problem.
Lake Morebecca is there that flows into that area.
Okay. Well, anyway, again, I wanted to thank the officers and yourself and Chief Lau for your help during the hurricane and making yourselves available. Thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, sir. And to Member Diesel's point, I think going a little bit further on that. So one is that it is a wetland. It was developed in a wetland, and it is slower to drain. And a 100-year storm, it was bad, no doubt about it. And I think what I've come to a conclusion on is we got one of two options. One is that relative to city services, we will do our utmost to do the best we can with the infrastructure that we have. And I think it is probably at a point, at this point, is whether or not the additional infrastructure is to be added to a smaller area that has a small problem. That's my real opinion on it. That would potentially somehow fix that. With the idea is that if any municipality had an unlimited amount of money to fix a issue within a small area, I'm sure that there is a recourse to do that. The question is, how much would it take? What would it do? And so forth and so on. So I would be interested in seeing that in the idea that if it was, we had to dump truck a generator in to salvage a lift station. In my eyes, it means that we have an area that was developed. Not sure if that development was the best idea in the world for that location, but it's a done deal. So now what do we do with it? So I would be happy to, I would be entertained to see what a next step could be for that area and how do we reduce it and what it would actually take. Specific to, there were 4 things or considerations I had for council. And so one was that tonight we discussed boards and committees. And in boards and committees, relative to our code of ordinances and our charter, it does discuss it discusses appointments and it discusses removal, but it doesn't in my opinion, it does not provide a clear purpose of what somebody is to be appointed to or what they should be doing as such. And what I mean by that is on the county's charter, it is very clear, and as an example, make appointments of individual citizens who desire to participate in their governments in any decision-making regulatory advisory board or committee, and the commissioners will make such appointments based on competence, expertise, or merit of the prospective appointee. And the reason that I would suggest, or I would hope that council might entertain, giving more of a defined purpose, even within our code, as to how we select an appointee, with the idea of this, is that my concern would be that although it's, I think, a courtesy that we appoint or potentially reappoint, and I think we've done so to the length of time that we consistently reappoint folks who have just served. And although I'm grateful for service, I think it at least was worth the wait or challenge, or would help council having words that these are the 4 things that you have to meet: competence, expertise, merit, and perspective, right, of a prospective appointee. And I think that mimicking the Brevard County charter relative to how we select, I think might be prudent. So in absence of I think it puts council in position for not having any defining words within our own, is that it becomes, well, I think they're okay, out of respect, it's been good, but it does, if we have to say no to somebody, there's nothing to stand on, and that's my concern. So one, if council would like to take a look at that maybe and come back with that, I'd hope you would.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
At this point? I certainly have no problem putting that in there, but I'm not sure it's as defining as what you said, because, as you said, rather, because basically what it says is hire the best, or appoint the best person for the job. And certainly each board is a little bit different, and there are people that have been on them a long time that have done an excellent job and still do an excellent job. There are people who haven't, and there are times when we have replaced people because of excessive absenteeism or things like that. So we generally do that, which is why I asked tonight, because the board that was up there is a very particular board and a very important one. And so I agree with what you're saying. I'm not sure, and I don't disagree with putting that in there. I'm not sure what you're accomplishing now. But I see no problem with putting that something of that sort in there. But I think we already do look for the best people. How do we get more people to come out? We've been struggling with that for years and years and years. Sometimes you do have a lot of people come out. I don't know why, but they seem to do it all at once, and maybe it's election years and things like that. People who sometimes have aspirations for a political future will go on a board, and several of us have, I think. And that's fine if they want to come, but there are years when you just don't get anybody coming in. And many of those boards have specific requirements to be on them too. So it's not like there isn't anything to go by. There really is. But I don't see any harm in that either. He still has the floor.
Okay.
Unless you'd like to defer for a moment.
I welcome any comments or perspective.
I think it was Wanda that suggested that what we really need to do is let friends, acquaintances, clubs that we speak at, anytime we are talking to people, we need to let them know we really are looking for people who are interested in serving. And I think that would be helpful, because I think it's something that we just don't think of. I mean, all those years when I was working, I never thought about doing anything like this. Not sure I had the time, but I think that's just not something people think about doing. I think people would enjoy it once they got into it.
And actually, that is in the application. Do you think you have enough time to do this? because they're surprisingly time-consuming. So that's maybe why some people, like I said, are working and can't do it. You have the first.
And thank you. And just follow up and maybe not just for a criteria of which we base a decision off of, but additionally, I think that's a concern that I have as well, is that we have an applicant, we have a vacancy, and we don't necessarily. I don't know. I would feel definitely liable and I guess I would feel concerned that I would owe a reasonable based explanation of why somebody couldn't be. As an example, if there was somebody who had submitted and somebody who had put in paperwork, and we go, well, there's a job that needs filled, but I know that it's very rational to us that maybe we need a little more time and so forth and so on. But I think another argument is that also could be, I guess, a basis for, well, how come you didn't choose me? You choose everybody else. How come you didn't choose me when you have a spot, and so on and so on? And so I think it just, if there is a concise word of, well, we were a little worried about the competence, we were hoping to get more clarity on the expertise and really the merit of the job. Those are, I think, words that you can use for clarity for basing a decision on do or don't or pause instead of, well, we just need a little bit more time. And I think it just pinpoints it. That's the opposite end of it. So thank you for your consideration for that.
If I can just comment, I'm not trying to contradict you, but I've been on this board for 11 years, so I've seen a lot more. One of the things about that, and maybe the city attorney, is when we make a certain set of rules, we are obligated to that set of rules, are we not?
That's correct.
So sometimes they may fit all those rules, but they've been arrested for child molesting or something, and we didn't put that in the rules. That's a terrible example, I guess, but I'm just trying to point out that, and you can't cover everything. So there is a problem with making a concise set of rules because you'd have too many things to cover, and at that point, you put more liability. City Attorney, you have a comment tonight?
I was available to answer questions, but I did want to point out, the more qualifiers you put on your discretion, the more you're going to be judged and held to those.
Exactly.
Right now it is your discretion when it comes to a board member as to why you feel comfortable appointing or not appointing. Just be careful when you start putting these, like I said, these parameters on your decision, you will be held to those.
My point exactly. So you got to be careful with some of these things, but there are certain basic requirements on certain of the boards that the type of professionals we are looking for, and so we do have some of that, but it's really hard to cover it all. There's no perfect world there.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, sir. An additional, and this I think more administratively, but I just caught it as we were going through talking about OPEB. In Article 3, Division 6, one of the sections, it denotes the governmental accounting standards, the GASB 45, within our code consistently, and I thought I heard the gentleman saying that is switching very quickly, and therefore I just, from update to code, do you need anything from us? Or
Correct. We'll be looking at that and seeing if we're going to come back any amendments to the code to stay updated. That's correct.
Okay. And then the last one, thank you.
And just a note on that, those change regularly. So, and the audits that reflect, we have a annual audit that we do, and then we also do an abbreviated audit that conform with whatever GATSI standards we're at.
Okay, thank you, sir. And then the last one, thank you, council, for the time. The last one is not necessarily code related, but it has to do with water within our city, and specifically with water bills and so forth and so on. And so, good folks, I know that in short, utility is a utility, and water is a resource, and receiving money for that resource helps the utility run, and it helps the city run. My hope has been, at least in my tenure in council, of ensuring confidence from the general public and the utility, specifically the great work that the folks do and make sure that that's conveyed, misconceptions are taken away. My hope has been to find some relief for communities in our community specific to needs that I think that I've seen arise in some of our citizens. So in short, what I'm seeking council, at least for discussion at a later council meeting or making time on the agenda, is if there's the potential for, I would only consider it like a mercy bill for water. And what I mean by that is we give one-time relief for a pool fill a year, right? And so I believe it goes to our sewage, but folks are not charged for the release of water when they fill their pool because it's in a pool. And we do that like once a year to help with pool fills and not charge folks for that. What I would be seeking is something along the lines of once every 3 years. It's an arbitrary number of how many years we're talking about. But if you were to get a water bill that you arrived at that was unintended, it's probably the homeowner's mistake, whatever the case may be, that we may be able to construct a policy that would allow for one relief of a exorbitant bill based off of a normal usage over a set time period. Meaning that for the past 3 years, my water bill has been the same thing, plus or minus $20 every year, every month, every whatever the case may be. For some reason, something happened either on my property side, whether city side, property side, whatever the case may be, that as the homeowner, once it's determined it was the homeowner and it was not by intent, it was the leaky toilet, it was the pipe, whatever the case may be, that we may be able to relieve the excess charge for that amount that they're going to be charged and round it out to their average use over a year's period. Meaning that you can take one lick every 3 years or 4, whatever the number. But what I think that would do is, for the amount, number one, relieve hardship for those who had an accident that was unintended, for sure. The second is that I would hope that it might give some flexibility to within the city from a customer service standpoint or as a utility, be able to give them some flexibility in dealing with customers. And I think overall it would help reestablish a fidelity in our utility from a public perception. So once every 3 years, 5 years, 2 years, I don't know, that's discussion, but that would be the intent. And that is all, sir. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just so council's aware, we do waive sewer fees and make payment plans. But our bonding doesn't allow for water to be given and forgiven. So the loan that we have taken in our bond says that we cannot give water away.
Well,
you want to speak? Or?
Thank you. So where I could see is the water, I think not giving, I think there's probably a few different ways to cut that. As an example, if it is the bond or the utility that we can't give water away, then I would wonder where does it require who makes the payment? For instance, if it's a matter of what we can't do is turn on the tap and that there's no money returned to it, I would get that. If it's that the city allocated X amount of dollars a year as a budget line for, I'll just say, water discrepancies or whatnot, that we could then fund that bill that, if it was a $500 bill, average use is $100, that the city would pick up the tab on that $400 discrepancy. So the utility would be paid.
But a little problematic to explain is
Sure.
You would be taking certain taxpayer dollars and putting them aside to pay for other taxpayers' water.
Correct.
That would be problematic. Because you can't provide a private benefit from tax dollars, and you can't provide free water. So I think what we're looking at is there are provisions in the code, and in the event an individual does have a spike where a high water bill as to a leak, as you said, or if there's an incident and they do get a plumber and they do identify that leak and they do bring that in, we do provide adjustments to bills based upon that incident. But I would caution council, when you do want to start setting aside in the budget taxpayer dollars to allow others to pay for their water bills, I believe that would be challenging.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you, Council. Thank you, Council.
Sure. Any other council members have anything they'd like to discuss? I see Member Stokel.
Yep. I just wanted to echo Member Diesel's comments regarding our city manager. I know I personally appreciated all the updates during the hurricane. I know a couple of us posted them out on Facebook, and I think the citizens really found them helpful just to stay in the know when you felt a little disconnected for the time being. So I just want to say thank you to staff and city manager's direction regarding that. Also to the vice mayor's point about boards and committees, I think, and I could be wrong, when I was listening to what you were saying, to me it was a very proactive approach because I do hope that we get multiple applicants in the future, and I feel right now we have no kind of rubric. So when we're getting them, you may be looking at one thing, I may be looking at something else. So maybe not necessarily written, but maybe some type of informal rubric that we can utilize. I would like to see that. So that's all I had.
I think this suggestion that was made by Member Nelson of speaking to our friends and neighbors is probably one of the best methods and the most effective. I know I did that many times, and then I started to run out of friends because they're all on the boards. But many of the people I know did take the position and enjoyed them. They didn't necessarily stay on them for 35 years or whatever, but I think it's a very good suggestion. All joking aside, I really wasn't joking.
Mayor, that just means you need to go find new friends.
New friends. All right. With that note, Member Stoker, was that still your light on from before? Yeah, no, that's all right. Okay, I think we're to the city manager's report.
Yes, sir. In addition to the information items, I do have one action item that is an addendum, and this is just kind of shoring some things up for the SAFER grant. So I'll read the acceptance of the SAFER grant, which is Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Services. On 24 January 2017, the City Council presented a letter of commitment to FEMA to apply for a SAFER grant to reimburse the city for costs associated with adding additional firefighters to the Titusville Fire and Emergency Services Department. On 31 July 2017, FEMA notified staff that the city had been awarded a SAFER grant funding in the amount of $948,199. The effective date of this award is 1 October 2017, with a required period of performance of 24 January 2018 to 23 January 2021. As a condition to establish acceptance of this award, FEMA requires grant awardees to register and acknowledge the terms of the award online through FEMA's website. Chief Woodward completed this task on behalf of the city in August 2017. In addition, an additional requirement of the grant is for council to acknowledge the grant award and designate a city point of contact to sign follow-on documents and coordinate with FEMA for reimbursements on behalf of the city. At this time, it would be appropriate for council to approve the acceptance of the SAFER grant award and designate our Fire Chief Woodward as the point of contact for the documentation of this award, assuring the city complies with the terms and conditions and receipts of funds.
May I have a motion to that effect? I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hear none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Same sign. Passes unanimously. You got it.
Yes, sir. And an additional, I'd like to give an update on our damage to the city. As you drive around, you'll see quite a bit of debris. To put it in perspective, during Hurricane Matthew, we collected 34,000 cubic yards, or about 9 tons of debris. Currently, as of today, we're about 15,000 cubic yards of collection. We've completed the trash routes or solid waste routes of Monday and Tuesday. We will begin Thursdays, beginning 1 October. That's primarily we're working closer to the river, so the amount of debris that we pick up will be substantially increased. We're not sure. We've made estimates on how much debris is out there. We've got a very aggressive plan to try to pick up all the debris and get our city back in order. Hurricane Matthew took us 38 days to complete that task. We are working 7 days a week right now. We anticipate this task to be completed early November, with our goal being the 3rd of November. And just to let you know a little bit about our dedicated crews, when they finish their service run on their solid waste trash trucks that have backloaders, they go ahead and dump the trash at the dump, and then they return in service to start collecting the debris on the backloaders by hand. So, in addition to the grapplers that we have out there, we've got every available piece of equipment that we have in the city working on that. If you got a commercial driver's license in the city, you're out collecting debris right now. So hats off to those guys and gals that are out there trying to police our city back up. There's a considerable amount of structural damage that we did not have during Matthew. Again, the seawall from the south side of the city all the way up is virtually destroyed. I think there's 3 or 4 docks left in the city. If you look at our parks, specifically in and around Rotary Park, those seawalls are done, as well as their structural damage to the parking lots themselves. This will take a considerable amount of time to repair. This is not let's clean up the debris, high-five each other, and we're back to normal, similar to what we did in Matthew. Matthew cost the city about $2.5 million. We're waiting on a reimbursement from FEMA of $600,000. Our initial estimates, and we're not quite sure on structural damage yet, but this is probably triple of that. So, we endured as a city the worst hurricane in the Atlantic history. We had no fatalities. Our first responders did a phenomenal job. They were out there until they couldn't be out there. We sequestered 63 employees that were separated from their families, as well as our first responders, to respond to the event. So my hat's off to the staff. I think they did a wonderful job and keeping our city safe, and just bear with us as we return it back to the beautiful city that it is. 2 other informational...
If I could, Mr. City Manager, I have a comment to make. Certainly, I know everyone up here echoes your sentiments and things you've said. Our staff has been amazing, and I told you at one of the last meetings that I have had people coming up to me and saying that I have yet to have, and I'm not inviting anybody, but yet to have anybody come up with any overwhelmingly bad comments on anything. They'd say, well, I'd like mine to pick it up, and they'd say, well, we'll get it as soon as possible. But that was, just a personal asking for the things to be done. But everybody says our staff is doing a great job. And I think one of the reasons is, and has been shown since you just had your city manager performance evaluation, is they got a great leader. I think you inspire them and work with them, and you're out there working as hard as they are. I went to the emergency area over at the command area, and you were right in there, and they were all there, and worked through the whole thing, and then after just kept going. And I do want to comment on the evaluation. As I said, I've been here and I've been involved with the city for almost 20 years now, in one form or another. And I've seen many evaluations, and we've had some great city managers. I have never seen one as high as yours, sir. So you are to be congratulated. And judging by that evaluation, I'd say every member of council up here appreciates what you've done and what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it, sir, and I look forward to many years ahead. And again, we have a tremendous staff, and they are so dedicated to the city and everything that they do. So it's great to be on their team.
We appreciate everything all of you do.
Can we tell him he's not allowed to go back to Alabama?
Huh?
Can we tell him he's not allowed to go back to
And
Alabama?
I get people, if he goes up there, he's in trouble, so he's got to stay here. I know a guy.
We have friends.
Mr. City Manager, anything else you have?
No,
I
sir.
interrupted you.
We have two other information items for your review, and just a penciled-in item for your calendar. The boards and commissions recognition ceremony is coming up on the 16th of October.
Yeah.
It's a very good event. We're planning on having it in the same location, and it's a great opportunity to thank our board members for all their volunteer service to our city.
Absolutely. With that, if council has anything more, now's the time to say it. If not, I declare this meeting adjourned.